number of people now coming in. The topic for today is organisational culture. And I know that some of you attending from previous discussions have good organisational culture. It's a very important area, and it knocks on to so much: CQC inspections, local authority quality monitoring, retaining your staff, staff motivation, cutting down on unplanned staff absence, and many other areas as well. And I think we've got two things today. We've got organisational culture. We've got Jenny Orgill and John from Social Works. And we've also got Ali Porteous, who's taken over from Laura with Skills for Care and has a huge range of experience across social care. Many of you will, or some of you will know her already. Some of you will get to know her better. I think probably we'll move straight into it, and I'll hand over to Jennifer. And you actually have, you are co-host, so she should be able to do everything.
Okay, right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my presentation and just ask, can you see?
Oh.
Can you see my slide?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's go and let's see what's going on Zoom.
I'm not sure whether you're outside prison or outside church, Dudley.
Okay, Peter, you said you've given me share.
Yep. You're co-host, so you should be able to.
Okay, well, let me just try again. Can you see my screen? Yay.
Yes. Yep.
That's lovely. And what I'm going to do is enlarge it. Okay, so good morning, everyone. As Peter said, my name's Jennifer Orgill, and I'm co-director with John Buttle from Social Works Limited. And we're one of the training companies that are delivering the Skills for Care CPD management courses. So one of them this morning that we're looking at is the Understanding Workplace Culture, but I just thought I'd give you a bit of history in terms of what other CPD management courses that Skills for Care provides. So it's a condensed session here today. These are normally 3.5 or 4 hours that we do, and it's all virtual. Thanks to COVID, things changed very drastically. However, these sessions are still as interactive as you can be with regards to it being hosted by Zoom. So the leadership programs and CPD, what are they? There are various other ones. You've got the Leading Change and Improving Care, which is a 5-day one, and that also has elements of action learning included within it. We've also got the well-led modules and the Lead to Succeed modules as well, and these are 5 modules. So, you know, they are either delivered over 4 or 5 days or over 4 and 5 weeks. And these are reflective pieces of work. These are reflective sessions for individual managers, new managers, in terms of the Lead to Succeed, for them to start looking at and questioning what it is about their leadership styles, why they want to be managers, what's involved in being managers. And the well-led modules are for more established managers as well. And again, it's a sort of reflection, a revisiting, in terms, again, of looking at things like it starts with themselves. Why do you want, why do you need to look at how you manage? What is it that you're doing that's well? What is it that you're doing that's not so well? These offer the opportunities for people, for different managers from different organisations, to share, to talk, and to reflect as well, and just have that safe space, because as managers, don't always get that time to just think about what you do and why we do it. Then we've also got the understanding that there's the three 1-day or half-day management courses, one being Understanding Self-Management and Understanding Performance Management. And the one that we're looking at today is understanding workplace culture. Now, I've tried to condense the slides as much as possible. So if we don't go through all of it, not to worry, I'll make sure that Peter and Dudley has this, so you'll get to see this. But we do have the full session as well, which again, has a workbook that people can use in their workplace with exercises and activities. So we're ready to start. The outcomes that we discuss is that we want people to develop a clear understanding of what is culture. We talk about what culture is. We've been hearing about cultures in the news for the last few years. Understand the relationship between culture, values, and vision. Your organisation's mission statement or vision statements. What is it? What does it say it wants from its staff, from its employees? But also, what does it want to do? Understand approaches for assessing toxic and compassionate culture, and thinking about how we can move from toxic working environments to one that isn't so. Understand simple rules for turning values into action. How do we move from a workplace culture that is one where people are not motivated to one where people feel included and motivated? But also, hopefully from this, they should gain awareness of a range of activities for developing and continuing to develop a positive workplace culture. It doesn't just start with, a CPD session. It's ongoing. It takes investment. It takes time, trial and error. So just thought we'd start with some topical things and just tell me if this is familiar to you. Workplace culture 2022. What would have happened in your workplace? These were findings from reports that there was a culture of excessive consumption of alcohol, which is not appropriate in a professional workplace at any time. Some staff wanted to raise concerns about behaviours they'd witnessed at work, but they at times felt unable to do so. Does that ring a bell? Does that sound familiar? Anyone? You can hear me, can't you?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Just a guess. Does this sound familiar to you?
Yeah, it does. Is it the government situation?
Yeah, Partygate, bring your own booze. Yeah, that's the kind of culture. Again, yeah, these are the types of cultures that are being exposed, under the spotlight. And then it doesn't stop there. You had the Casey review, an independent investigation into the standards and of behaviour and internal culture of Metropolitan Police Services. Again, I'm not going to go through all of it, but it said there are racist officers, staff, and a deep-seated homophobia exists in the culture of the organisation, the report said. It also added that violence against women and girls was not taken seriously as other forms of violence. It also found that there was widespread bullying in the Met, with a fifth of staff with the protected characteristics under the Equalities Act, for example, race, sexuality or disability, felt that they were being victimised. Doesn't end there. We also had from the fire services as well, where you had people coming forward, officers coming forward saying that in their experience, the problems came from the top. And it also was because of a lack of awareness and a lack of ability to self-reflect and see the part that they, senior managers played. It came from pointing downwards and looking for bad apples instead of looking at the part that they play, managers, that allows this behaviour and culture to continue. But also, not just in other public services, let's remind ourselves about Winterbourne, where, management allowed a culture of abuse to flourish. And according to the report, concerns raised by whistleblowers went unheeded. There was evidence suggesting an inappropriate prescribing for antipsychotic drugs. And again, Enfield Centre, where again this was exposed, where staff and service users felt humiliated and abused and isolated for weeks. Patients were put at risk due to a toxic culture. Staff swore at patients and were seen slapping or pinching them on occasion. And it doesn't just end there. In popular culture, I think we all know about, a few weeks ago, it was consistently in the news, but, people felt enabled to come out and talk about a toxic culture. Dr. Ranch said he'd raised concerns, especially given that his job was to look after people's well-being, and that involved, diversity, anti-bullying, mental health projects, but he felt because he whistle blew, he was managed out. McDonald's has fallen short, and it deeply apologised for a toxic culture of sexual assault, harassment, racism, bullying, and it has been alleged that more than 100 current and recent UK staff at their outlets have reported these happening. So, culture. Culture is often described as the way that we do things here, but it is more than that. So just to get you a sense of how these courses, how these sessions are run, we go into breakout rooms and we have discussions, because it's also not just about PowerPoint presentation, but to get people to start thinking and asking and questioning, well, what is culture to you? But also we've seen examples of culture, toxic cultures, but what does culture mean to you? How would you describe it? What does it look like? Now, I'm going to, at this point, attempt to put, it just depends how many people there are, but I'd like to create 3 breakout rooms. Ali, I am so sorry to put you on the spot, but in the absence of Dudley, would you mind being one of our facilitators and just be in the room to...
It seems rather appropriate. Yes, happy to.
Thank you very much. I'm going to create 3 breakout rooms. Okay, your names will be there on the screen. It's 10-15 minutes discussion. Okay, so what is culture to you and how would you describe it? So what I'm going to do is remove, Ali, you can stay in there. John, I'm moving you. Okay, Peter, you're not in you're not going in. No, you've got to let people in. I'm just going to go into the breakout rooms, hopefully.
There's Lola and Pat still out.
I'm in. Lola is in.
Okay, we just need to apportion Lola and Pat into the meeting rooms.
Morning. Good morning. I'm just trying to, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, hello, hi.
I'm just trying to change device. So I'll leave this one.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to change device because
Right. Hello, Par. I'm not sure if you've been... Okay, yeah, that should be in. Okay, we're in. Hello, Lloydette. Lloydette, can you hear me?
Hi, Peter. Yes, good morning. Yes, I can.
Yeah, hi. There's a couple of breakout rooms going on at the moment, but that's going to finish pretty shortly. So it's probably as well if you don't join the breakout room, because then you'll be coming straight back out of the breakout room. But you'll go straight into the general meeting when the general meeting re-kicks off, and then there'll be further breakout rooms. So you'll be part of that.
Right. Okay. So
Okay.
do I have to just stay logged in?
Yeah. So if you just hold fire for a couple of ticks, you'll be fine.
No
Yeah.
problems. Okay, then.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Peter. How are you anyway?
I'm good. Yourself? Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, Lloydette, just give you a quick brief, okay? What they're discussing in the breakout room. Sorry, my name's Jenny. I'm just
Hi, Jenny.
hi. We're doing the understanding workplace culture. We had two questions. What is culture to you, and what does culture look like? Okay, so when they come back, they'll be talking. Hopefully, we'll be discussing or be sharing what they've discussed in the breakout rooms about what does culture mean to them. What does it look like? Okay.
Okay.
So. I'm going to now close. I'm going to close the rooms. I can still do that, can't I, Peter?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Breakout rooms are closing in 1 minute. I hope they heard that.
Okay.
It's not, you stay where you are, Lloydette. I'm just announcing to your colleagues that the breakout room is going to be closing. And I'm now just going to put the screen back on. Okay, welcome back, everyone. People are still coming in. I can see people still coming in. So for those of you who are here, okay, from either of the breakout rooms, anybody, would you want to say what you felt culture was to you, but how would you describe it?
If I could jump in there, Jennifer, we've had a very, very dynamic conversation and some really good perspectives, not just from residential care, but also the challenges of culture within a domiciliary environment. But I think we agreed that one of the things that culture really is that statement of the way we do things around here. And that's supported not only with policies and procedures, but also a fluid a fluid relationship towards change of the people who are working with us and the people that we're providing services for. So it's not a set thing. It's a fluid thing. It's something that's led by policies and processes, which is supported by the behaviour of leaders, of deliverers, of the entire team, knowing exactly what the philosophy is of people and how they want to deliver the support they can. Some of the interesting things were certainly, although we can be really historical in the way we approach things, it's important in a modern world to be fluid in the responses that we have and to really think about that type of thing. But I think one of the biggest challenges was highlighted is how do you take that culture away from just the office and move it beyond the borders of the office team or whatever and take it into either the care home or into the domiciliary environment.
Thank you, Ali. Anyone else? Because again, when we're talking about culture, it's, as we've seen in the examples before, this is not the kind of workplace culture that any organisation should be exhibiting, should be having. For us, in terms of having a workplace culture, is writing down what you were saying, it's open to change, but everyone has an input. Sorry.
But from our group, we had really good discussions around some of it, and like Annie's group, a lot of it was it's led by example. It's led by the leadership and the style of that and the management. It's about a culture of respectability in terms of mutual respect and collaboration and open communication. One of the, and we were kind of trying to find out how we actually would measure whether we had a good culture or a bad culture. And one of the things that came up is basically if you discover that you've got a problem, rather than having been told that you've got a problem, you know that your culture is not as open and welcoming as you would maybe like it to be. So some of the ways that people were kind of seeing in terms of setting the culture and maintaining it were things like anonymous feedback surveys, which you can do with staff, which is one way of kind of, you know, just double checking whether your kind of barometer in terms of what you think things are like is actually on point. Obviously, supervision and team meetings and having maybe a little bit of fun in team meetings, an open office culture where people are encouraged to kind of come in and share. Some people tried WhatsApp groups, but that can work both ways, I think it was found. And occasionally meals together and celebrations of achievement. You know, if somebody kind of gets a promotion or somebody kind of gets a new qualification, making a little bit of a song and dance and things like that. And then, you know, other stuff, and most importantly, probably being, you know, when things go wrong, being seen to be correcting the problem and resetting the balance, which is probably one of the hardest things you do as a manager. I mean,
okay, that's
yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you short.
No, I
it
was just going
sounds,
to say, I think that was a good, pretty much all we talked about, unless anyone wants to jump down my throat and I've got it wrong.
well, it sounds like you've come up with solutions already in terms of if there is a workplace culture that's one that's problematic or may have issues, these are things that we need to be doing. So any more, but I'm just conscious of time, and I just want to give you a taster of what these programs contain. But thank you for that, because again, you're already looking at solutions. If our workplace does have problems, is experiencing a culture where people don't feel included, people feel that they're not being listened to, you're coming up with solutions already, or you're coming up with practices that you are doing already. But part of this CPD as well is let's look at these levels of culture. So they provided us with Edgar Shane. It looks at the lily pond. What can you see? Looks lovely, doesn't it? It's supposed to be representing, so the mission and the vision achievements. This is what we want to achieve. We want to achieve a workforce that looks good but is good as well. On the outset, what do people see? What do service users see? What do potential commissioners see? What do people who you want to come to work within your team, within your organization, what do they see? What's presented? But also the behaviors. Do people actually know the types of behaviors that is expected? What we want? What your organization's policies and procedures are? Do people actually know what good behavior is? So you've seen what we want to represent. This is what the organization's mission and vision statements wants to achieve. And therefore, to achieve these, we need to have certain behaviors to fulfill this. But underneath, you have things like attitudes and beliefs that comes with individuals. You also have values, the values of the organization, but also values of people within the organization as well. They can have an impact. They can actually have, you know, an outcome in terms of how the organization works, how your team works, how your group work. And it goes into a bit more detail as well. So it talks about the observable, the behavior. So that question, you know, in terms of culture, describe it. What is it? What can people see? We talk about culture, and sometimes we say we have a positive workplace culture, but what is that? What makes it a positive workplace culture? And also, if things aren't going well, what is it that's not going well? Why is it not going well? What does it look like? Also, things that are liable to description. We talk about attitudes and values, people and beliefs that people hold unconsciously. We hold those as well as managers, as leaders. And these can have an impact on our behaviours. These can have an impact on how we work with individuals. So a question we always ask as well is, what are your values and how do these impact in your work? And let's be honest as well, there'll be people in your team that you'll get along with. There'll be people in your team who may come in and want to have their own little subcultures. And these are things we're going into a bit more detail when we're doing the full version of this. And we look at subcultures and what that means and how it can be a challenge to you as the leader, as the manager, as the employer. And challenges can be a good thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it's how it's being done, why it's being done. And with regards to the CPD program as well, with Skills for Care, they do use examples from different organisations. Now, I'm not going to be showing the film because we don't have time for that, and also because in terms of your software, sometimes the films, again, people may not hear it. But one way around that is what we've done is we use subtitles. But as I've said, I'm happy to send you out links to some of the films that go with these individual programs. But something from Angela Boxall, who's the CEO of Majestic Care Homes, she says we put just as much energy into our staff as we do our residents. If we have a highly energetic and motivated staff team, then the business takes care of itself. So in terms of the feedback that you were giving, again, these are things that you're saying that you want to do or you are doing. But also from the Chartered Institute for Professional Development, it says, put the ER back into HR. Employers should promote the importance of respect between employees at every level of the organisation and ensure that people's behaviours reflects the right values. And a question that we usually ask in there as well, especially if you have staff who do not work in the office and are out there remotely working, how do you know that they are upholding the values of your organisation? How do you check? It says senior leaders need to take a visible lead on the issues and set the tone for fostering a work environment where people feel empowered to speak up. When dealing with unfair treatment at work, prevention is better than cure. Employers should strive to develop cultures where harassment is known to be unacceptable. What is harassment to do? Again, sometimes we ask these questions, do people know when we talk about harassment what it is? Because it can change. What are your policies? Are there policies there to deal with equality and diversity and bullying and harassment? These are important, but they'll also have an impact if they're visible and if they're brought into life in the organisation. Again, having discussions about making sure that people understand and know when we talk about harassment and bullying, that they understand what it actually means. Any thoughts or questions as we go on? Okay, so another thing that we ask people to think about, what is on show? If the spotlight was shone on your organisation or your team, I'm getting feedback, I don't know where that's coming from. What would it show? And again, this is just something, and again, this is just something, and again, this is just I don't know what's happening, but I'm getting a lot of feedback and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
If is it possible you could mute yourselves? And if you do, if you want to add or make a comment. This is not a way to run a show.
Magdalene's got her hand up. It might be Magdalene.
Okay, Magdalene, sorry, you've got your hand raised. I do beg your pardon. I was just so focused on the noises. Sorry, Magdalene, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I was looking at the chart, the organizational culture, and the one highlighted in orange color, the unconscious part of it. Because as the description says, yes, that is how we function in the organization. Then that unconsciousness is there. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. That's a place you need to talk more on it, because when we say organizational culture, what the description there and the policy is there for us to follow, but unconsciously, few things are happening that shouldn't be. And at a point, if it's not addressed, it looks like it is organizational culture. And if we look at it, that's not how we do things here.
And it's also, again, I think in terms of knowing what our responsibilities are, we need to remind people. And I think some of the feedback was where you sort of use team meetings. Team meetings can be used as opportunities as well to remind people again and to revisit, if we've got a vision statement, if our organization's mission statements, said something 20 years ago, is it relevant now? But it's making sure that people know that they have a share in this. People need to feel part of something, to want to feel that they're involved. And it's, again, if the spotlight was shone on your organization, what would it show? What would be seen? What would you want them to see? CQC came in with a flashlight, with a spotlight, or some other organization came in, or the BBC, God forbid, came in. What would you want them to see? And also, what wouldn't you want them to see? And the questions always is that we discussed during these sessions is why? It's describing the unseen. What is good behavior? What is good culture? What does it look like? We talk about, we've got a great workplace culture, but what does it look like? What's great to one person may not be great to another. What does it look like? Is it consistent? And we also look at activities such as, when have you experienced an unhealthy culture in your career? And it says respecting confidentiality, but these are things that we need to think about as well in terms of us being able to support team members. But we've all had experiences where we've been in a team where things haven't been good, but what was it like? What made it not good? And then if you're asking yourselves that question, do you ask your employees, your team, these questions as well? Because it can have an impact. And what would the impacts be? If you have an unhealthy culture in your workplace, would one of it be that people would leave? Do you think people want to stay in a workplace where the culture is unhealthy, where it's gossipy, where they feel bullied, where they feel unheard? So what we also look at, again, it's saying people engage in what they help to create. And again, some of the things that you were saying from your feedback, one of the things we talk about, do you ask your staff for feedback about you and about your performance and about the organisation? I know we use supervision and appraisals, and these are the formal processes that we have. But in terms of engaging with people on a different level, we also need to have feedback. Do you seek feedback from your staff about how you're doing? And in one of the in the understanding workplace culture, in the workbooks that we have activities that can create that kind of discussion between managers and between staff. Now, I'm just very conscious of time, so I would like to leave a little bit of time at the end for some question and answers, but I'll carry on as it's 10:47. But another activity we look at is, what is a toxic workplace culture and what does it look like? And you've got no empathy, lack of leadership, fear, not being respectful, no support, discrimination and bullying. And there's no consequences, no accountability, there's pressure, favoritism, people feel insecure, jealousy even. There's an unhealthy work-life balance. Again, toxic workplace cultures can look like this. You don't have a list of core values. What are your values? And again, values and culture, what is it? What does it look like? Do people understand them? There's a lot of gossip in the office. Employees are often tardy or absent. They just turn up when they want to. Employers are often late and don't take lunches. Do you take lunches? There's a team subculture. And good discussions that we've had in these CPD programs is where, there will always be an individual who's been there a long time. They've done the job a long time. They know the job. You're new. What do you know? I'm the real manager. There's no diversity, equality, and inclusion policies. And again, people don't feel that there's any fairness because people aren't being given promotional opportunities, no hiring from within. And also, another thing is when you get public criticism of staff, of your organisation. Now, just to balance this, because we don't want it all to be about what is a toxic workplace and what looks bad, okay? What a good workplace can look like. Everyone's treated equally. This is what we all want from our workplace. This is what we all want for ourselves, for our team. Everyone is welcome. We're all proactive. There's understanding, there's respect. Again, what does that look like? We listen to each other. There's trust. There's a lot to be said for that. You know, and people have the opportunity to discuss issues. There's cooperation. We value everyone. People are treated fairly, and there's transparency. So think about this. And another thing that we do, these again are just some of the exercises that we do, is think about how you would move from a culture, one that's where staff feel unmotivated, to one that is ideal for future development. And we use models such as this, where in the group we talk about, name it. What is a current culture that you would like to move from? What is happening? And then you have to have a vision of what good looks like. If you want to get the ideal, what is it? What does it look like? And in the middle, how do we get there? What do we need to do? Who do we need to involve? That could be using supervision, using training, using mentoring. There are various things that we've got within ourselves, within our organizations, that we can use to move on if this is what needs to happen. And I think I'm just going to sort of end on this, some questions about possible questions that you could ask your team every month to make people feel that they're included, that they're part of the organization, that their views matter, that this is a workplace culture that wants to hear, is interested in knowing how their staff feel. It says maintaining ongoing communication with your team. Questions we can ask, like, how can I be a better team leader? Or you may want to redress that and ask that in a different way. What can we do to improve our product, our processes, our work? What can we do to improve team culture? Because it's everyone's responsibility. What team building activities can we do together? And I noticed that you said things like having team meetings, team lunches, and one of the managers from a domiciliary care organisation said, because we don't always often see staff in the office, we kind of do a meet-up at a cafe. We have a cafe and chat. So when they're coming back from a visit, we know that every 2 months we're going to meet up. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cafe. It could be somewhere where we can sit down, have a coffee and catch up. Just that people know and feel that they're still involved, that they're part of an organisation, even though they're working remotely. And also, what's one thing you did recently that you're proud of? Questions we can ask people within your work. What have we been doing that makes us feel proud of what we do? But also questions we can ask, what were your biggest challenges this month? So it's a kind of an investment questions to show that we care, to show that we genuinely want to have a workplace culture where it's one that is respectful, cooperative, discussing, enjoys collaboration, discuss differences, but also one where it's nice to each other. Now, Peter, I'm just mindful now that it's 10:52 and just wanted to leave 5-10 minutes, well, it's less than 10 minutes now, but any questions that anyone, or any input that people may want to have, or anything that people want to say, any comments? I'm so sorry that this is very brief, but we do offer the full 3.5 hours of this, because this is just a taste. It doesn't just focus on what is not a good workplace culture, but also what can make a good workplace culture, but also understanding the part that we play, that you play. Because one of the things I always say is that, it's an analogy, it's not a very good one, but just pretend that you're a member of the royal family. Everything you do, everything you say, what you wear, how you interact with people, you're watched, you're observed. People will look to see what you're doing if you're treating someone differently. So it's really important to have that kind of four-way mirror for yourself, to question and check, am I treating person A the same way as I'm treating person B? Because people will observe that. They will see if you are being fair, if you're valuing everyone. And also, if you're playing to people's strength, and also if you're sharing, and if people are treated equally.
Jennifer, can I just ask, obviously, the amazing thing about culture is that it changes the way things are, but it's quite a non-seen option, isn't it? And obviously we always think about our CQC ratings, particularly with the emphasis on well-led. What's the best way to show evidence of it when the CQC come knocking on your door? How do you show that you've got a really good culture? Because
sorry.
No, it's just it is a difficult one, isn't it?
It is a difficult one, but because again, your evidence is your staff, your evidence are the people who use your services, how involved they feel. But also one of the things we do is say, well, if we do have meetings where we talk about how we can improve, how we can change, have evidence of that, record meetings that you have, but also, in terms of having a CQC folder where it looks at things where people recognize that we talk about values, we have meetings where we talk about, well, okay, how can we improve? How can we change? What can we do differently? But it's having these meetings is all well and good, but having evidence of having that to show that, but also, doing regular check-ins, but also pulse surveys as well. Asking people the opportunity, giving people the opportunity to say, well, not all the time they will want to speak face to face, but have pulse surveys, nudge activities where people can give feedback in writing, where they can say if they feel satisfied about their work, if they're happy where they work, if they feel that they're being supported, and you have it there as evidence. You keep a paper trail of evidence or email trail of evidence, but it's where you're actually seeking feedback. And you've got that recorded, that you're seeking feedback, you're having catch-ups, you're chatting with people, you're checking in on people, not just through supervision, not just through team meetings, but on a regular basis, that you're having these surveys where you're asking questions to see if we're doing well, if we're not doing well, what can we do? Does that answer your question, Ali?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think it is about being proud. And I think that's really important. I know Peter's got something to add to that.
Oh yeah, Peter, your hand's raised.
Well, I've talked to a number of CQC inspectors and also, quality monitors from local authorities. I've visited a very large number of care providers over the years, and it's actually generally not that difficult to see culture in action. It's sometimes the first thing is the visible sign of going into an organization, how one is welcomed, what the place looks like.
Yeah.
And you can tell if someone's taking a pride around the office. And particularly with dom care organizations, where we've talked to staff, where we've done exit interviews, the reason that people leave or are not happy is frequently because they're not communicated with properly. They're not respected, and the fact that it's a very difficult job, that's not recognized. And it's the simple things, the simple foundations that enable people to build on their work-life balance, really, and particularly with the DCA, because those people are working in the community, they're at arm's length, and they rely upon the support from their office, from the managers, from the leaders, and they recognize the value of decent training and decent support. And that's really, the simple things are often perhaps the easier things to get right.
Thank you, Peter. I'm just checking on the chat if people are agreeing. And it's thinking about how you welcome people when they come to your team.
That's not me talking to myself, by the way. That's Dudley, for some reason, logs in as Peter Webb, and we're not quite sure why.
But that was just you giving that feedback.
It was me giving the feedback, but it's Dudley in the chat. Yes.
Jenny, can I come in?
Of course you can. This is your.
One of the things that, for me, one of the most important things of a good and open culture is that when mistakes are made, and they are always made, is that the organization spends time in seeing what went wrong and correcting it, rather than kind of browbeating the person for making the mistake. What always worries me a little bit is, how does CQC view that? So if you notice that something has gone wrong and you you don't hide it under the tablecloth, but you actually address the issue and put it right. It does mean that you are publicly exposing the things that you've done wrong a little bit. I mean, does anyone, I mean, Ali, Peter, do you have an impression of how CQC deals with that and views it? Do they see it as a good thing or a bad thing?
I think they see it as a good thing, and I can give you an example. A manager and an owner that I do some work with, talking with her yesterday, there had been a safeguarding issue, and they had been summoned to a meeting, which was very constructive. It wasn't the first time there had been a safeguarding alert, but one of the comments made was that because in the previous examples, the organization had always acted constructively and had good action plans, and they could evidence that the action plan linked to training and that the staff supervision was excellent, they felt, the safeguarding people felt that there was nothing to take further. And although obviously as a safeguarding alert, it had been passed on to CQC, there was no, if you like, intervention or no work from CQC involved, because the safeguarding people were quite happy, therefore CQC were quite happy. But again, the reverse of that is sometimes we tend to hear the comment that, oh, well, you know, them again. It's the same old, and they haven't learned, you know, a meds issue, the simple things haven't been learned from.
Okay, Dudley's got your, Dudley, you've got your hand raised, but just before that, I've just noticed there's something that you said, Peter. Sorry, Dudley?
No, go on, Jenny, you can go ahead quickly. And
I was just quickly going through the chats where, Peter, you put something in that there was an issue at CQC where their culture was also criticised. So, you know, no one is safe from that. But also, Dudley, you put something in the chat also about, you know, trust and support also, and being valued, you know, are really important things for, you know, people within work. Sorry, I'm handing over to you now, Dudley.
No, thank you very much. Funny enough, during the sort of after COVID, we were asked to go into care organisations, and we were asked to sit in with the staff and get feedback from the staff without the management team being present. It was quite open to see some of the things and themes that came from it. And they were allowed almost like a free hit to explain what they felt was going wrong. I think communication probably was one of the biggest things that they said, that they weren't spoken to or communicated enough about what was going on, actually being given an idea of what can be done with an organization. So the likelihood of them staying with an organization is if they were communicated about where the organization was going, how they were valued, were they being listened to. And I think a lot of these things play a big part in our culture. And I know it's a phrase that gets thrown around so much, but having an open door policy is one thing we almost hear, but do you really have an open door policy? Are you really listening and hearing your staff? Which is another thing which people, you know, you actually go and do a supervision and actually you just literally write on a piece of paper. Do you follow up with it? Do you actually get them to have more input and actually then measure it by actually saying, okay, let's set some targets and tasks, and how do we sort of like achieve this as well? So I think having not just an open door policy, but an open door discussion and allowing the sort of your staff or peers lead or have conversations. And then if you want to go further, having, for example, team meetings and dedicating it to maybe staff to lead on maybe agendas they would like to bring into place. So all these things will really help with the cultures within organizations. So that would be my feedback.
Agreed. Everyone contributes to a workplace culture. And, you know, again, question we always end with is, if BBC or other news agencies are available, but if the spotlight was to be shown on your organisation and looking at culture, what would they see? What would you want them to see? And why?
Thanks for that. I'm not going to get controversial, but obviously, you know, recently what happened with the BBC and the news reporter, and we won't mention no names, and actually then it opened up a lot more we found out more about the culture of BBC than we have done in many years, just by what happened in the last sort of few weeks alone. So cultures can make and break you. And if you have a bad culture, then you may not be open up, but when something goes wrong, there'll be many people will say, this is what's wrong, this wasn't right, this was always this way. So having frank conversations with your workplace, surveys are good, anonymous surveys, which means that you can actually get a sort of a free hit of feedback without actually personally being named, or people actually being booked to, you said this, how do you do this, why do you say that? So things like that also help as well.
Yeah, and just sort of backing up what you're saying, various ways that you could use using question styles, multiple choice. If people don't feel that they want to or are able or feel empowered to say it to you face to face, offer other opportunities, and that would look good for CQC also, that people, you're seeking feedback in creative ways rather than a sit down face to face. True feedback means that you're looking at ways of getting everyone's views, not just to sit down with the smiley faces, but if they want to do it anonymously, give them that opportunity. And you know what, if you don't like the answers that you get, then question why. It's gone past 11. I've overrun a little bit, Peter, Dudley. But any questions, any more comments or thoughts?
There is one point that I would make, which is, I know we've got some owners here, I know we've got some managers here. Some of the worst cultural situations that I've had to sort out over the years have been where the owner and the manager, two different people, are almost diametrically opposed with their views of where the company should go. And it's not that they were bad owners or bad managers or bad leaders. It was that they just had got different targets. And many of the organizations in social care are small, medium-sized enterprises. And if you have a manager and an owner and they are different, they have different views, they need to resolve those at the outset, because the people that work for them are not stupid. They will pick up the conflict.
Yeah.
And just to add to that point, there was a massive study that was done, and one of the reasons why staff left their workplace, most people said they thought it would have been pay would have been the first one, but actually it was valued, which was actually came out in the survey. So if you think about workplace culture, it's actually more important even than pay. So something to think about.
Okay, well, thank you for this opportunity. But again, Skills for Care have got a lot more of these CPD courses, and feedback has been that people have learned from it. People have used it. It's not just an opportunity for you to come and do your, to sit there for 3.5 hours. There are takeaways that you can use, and it really is just down to the individual. If you want to change, it's got to begin with you. And these specific sessions, modules, they're just there to give you the tools that you already have.
Yeah, I mean, all we can really say, apart from thank you very much, Jenny, is that it's probably one of the most valuable sessions that as an owner or a manager you will ever do, that 3.5 hours. And it's a good base for CPD. And I would also say that we are seeing more requirements for CPD to be checked when inspectors go in. And I would hark back to the outset of many people's business relations with local authorities. We see a lot of tender submissions and we see a lot of tender opportunities. And more we are seeing words around organisational culture. And those are things that are being checked. And if you read some of the responses, in those, it's clear that the organisation does not have a good culture. They don't really know what they're talking about. They're simply, cut and pasting words from the Skills for Care website or from somewhere else. It doesn't reflect what is actually going on in their organisation. And believe me, the monitors from local authorities and CQC inspectors are not stupid. They will pick up the problem very quickly indeed. If there's no more questions for Jenny, we'll move on to Ali Porteous from Skills for Care. Many thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome, and thank you, everyone. Do I need to give you, can you take it back, or do I need to?
You need to just stop sharing and then I can jump in.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not too sure how I follow all that, because I think Jennifer's probably published an awful lot more about the Skills for Care than I could possibly at all run. But what I have is a small PowerPoint, so I'm hoping that this will now come up. Let me know if you can see anything.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. I'm not going to do a huge piece today for you, because I wanted first of all just to introduce myself. So my name is Ali. Some of you know me. I've been working in the Surrey area for quite some time. I was working as the workforce project manager for Surrey Care Association. But I would honestly say that in reflecting on what you have just been talking about, Jennifer, the reason I have gone to Skills for Care is because I've admired their culture for some time. And it was very much around how they supported their staff and they supported their cultural understanding of well-being for staff and business development that encouraged me to move. But also it was because they have a real focus on recruitment and retention, and that has been a key interest of mine over the last few years. My background has predominantly been within the learning disability area initially, and then after that I very much moved into developing people's core skills, training, etc. And some of the areas that I would hope that I can support you with is my knowledge as a registered manager, a regional manager, trainer, and also, as I say, for the last 6 years working very closely within Surrey for recruitment and retention as their project manager over there. So please feel free to contact me if there are anything that you feel I can be useful for. But what I want to do is just run through some of the bits that we are given as locality managers to show you as members and users of our organisation what is available. And I don't think I can sell it any better than Jennifer has. She has really put forward the fact that what Skills for Care are doing is looking at the things that you need to be the best practitioners that you can be, and looking at the things that the people around you need. And I'm just reflecting on some of the things that you said there, Jennifer. I would say, and Peter as well, nominated individuals. Now, that can often be a real challenging point for a lot of people as to how you get the culture of the organisation written down in your aims and objectives that you as managers, registered managers or business owners have come together and agreed. So we do have various courses that can support that. And I would ask you to look at the website. And when I send over my PowerPoint, I'm hoping that I'll have all sorts of different links that we don't necessarily cover in the next few minutes, but also help you see what we've got available. So some of the latest information from us, obviously we've talked about the positive workforce culture piece. As you know, or I hope you know, we have a spotlight really shining in on that culture at the moment and looking at how people really embed culture into their working positions. And I would say if it was me as a homes manager now, I would be putting culture back onto, if it isn't already on my supervision notes, so that I can talk through every time with my teams how they perceive things are changing, how they want us to be able to move forward, and more importantly, how innovative each member of that team can be about how the culture develops. It's not about changing, it's always about developing things. So do look at our campaign areas. You'll see some details, and as I say, when you get the PowerPoint, just follow the link at the bottom of this screen for that particular piece of information. One of the things that we've been asked about an awful lot, and I'm not sure how this group is affected by it, but the Oliver McGowan training. If you're providing services for people with learning disabilities or people who are on the autistic spectrum, you need to really think carefully about how you're providing the supported training for Oliver McGowan. We've got some great links in it, and there are some initial draft trainings, and certainly the tier 1 link is very important. If any of you have specific questions around Oliver McGowan or how it would impact your training, where you need to embed it, because it is now required for anybody working with that particular cohort of people, think very carefully about how you're going to put that into your matrix, how you're going to support your team to gain the information they need, and how you're going to evidence that. And if we can help you in any way, please do get in touch. Some of the information for you as registered managers, I wanted to remind you of the services that we offer. Now, obviously, we have a variety of different supports outside of these community groups, and I see Peter's already put his hand up, so I shall pause instantly and take your paw from the screen. Hi, Peter.
Sorry to interrupt, Ali, but
Not at all.
Just quickly with Oliver McGowan. Quite a lot of domiciliary care organisations, support providers, are offering services to areas such as learning dis and autism, but they do not have the specific training to actually do that properly. And local authorities have picked up and take their services because they're cheaper than going to people that are properly trained, should we say. And CQC are going to inspect, and when they inspect learning dis autism services, they will be checking the training to make sure that the training is correct. And if they find that, say that there's a DCA that is offering the service, that they don't have the actual support, training, etc., they will actually get that service taken away from them.
They will be given a period of time to ensure that they can put the training into place. I think because it is such a new training, and the difficulty is to be able to find, certainly for the tier 2 training, is proving to be challenging because it's not really been audited and set out for people. But I would suggest that everybody, whether you're, my personal feeling is watch the training that is there, get into the tier 1 training. It's easy to access. Details are obviously on the sites, but it gives a really, really good understanding of some of the things, even if you're not working with somebody who has a diagnosis, but some of the things that you need to consider when supporting people in a variety of different situations. Oliver McGowan, as many of you may know, was a young lad who died within the hospital services. Their family hadn't had much contact within the main services that are provided to a lot of other people, and were quite shocked at the lack of knowledge and understanding that the professionals around him received. And I can only say that everybody will be moved, I think, by the statements from his mother. So my feeling is, at the moment, everybody should be looking at it. However, I do say that with the fact that a wonderful stat was given to me that if we were to roll this out within Surrey and to get everybody, particularly through the NHS, through this process, it could take up to 11 years. So the speed in which we can actually deliver this is going to be challenging. However, the tier 1 is a vital piece of training that can be done by anybody online and gives a really good evidence. If CQC then come along and say, what evidence do you have of providing the training that's now mandatory in this area, you're able to direct people to the initial platforms that they've covered, record that training, but more importantly, you can come to us and we will support you in regarding the tier 2 training, which is often for people who are a much more specific type of work. But the tier 1, I would recommend it to everybody. I would even recommend it to the people in the supermarkets who are supporting some of our individuals as they come through shopping. An understanding of the complexities of the world of somebody who sees it differently is vital for anybody working in care nowadays. But I would agree, Peter, evidence, 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 isn't it? Show that you're working towards it, even if you're not able to necessarily get people booked onto tier 2, show you've done the due diligence.
Yeah, and sadly, there are training providers out there who are selling courses that they say covers all the needs, and as we don't know what some of the needs are, they aren't actually doing a very good job, but they're happy to take your money.
Yeah, and the tier 1 side of things is free. As I say, we've got some great resources on our website. Please do take a look at it. Tier 1 is free. You shouldn't be paying for that at all. And everybody will have that chance to do that training online. So do please take a look at the link on this PowerPoint. Some of the other things we're offering, obviously, in regards to some of the webinars that we've coming up, I would always suggest, and previously I would attend a number of Skills for Care webinars because there is always something to learn. Keep a shortcut on your desktop and know what's going on around you. And I think that you will find there's always something interesting that you can attend. And some of us do what we're doing now. We put our screens off, we put our headphones on and we listen in the background. But there's those nuggets that are so valuable. So don't be scared to take a look and see what you're entitled to. Obviously, one of those that's coming up is involving people in care planning. My feeling, because I come from a learning disability background, is this is a no-brainer. I would want to attend this course. Unfortunately, I'm away on holiday, but it really does help people understand the nuances that anybody, whatever their ability to communicate or their ability to influence the outcomes in their lives, can be involved in their care planning. And this will give a really good understanding of how you can help people be involved in that process. We've also got some other pieces coming up. We've got a lovely, if you haven't listened to our podcasts, I would strongly advise you go to the website and have a little look to the podcasts. Again, a wonderful thing to have on the background while you're working. And many of us now have headphones on. I personally am a big podcaster when I walk my dog. So it's a great thing to do in a passive way, but really interesting things that have been coming down the line at the moment, and things that I think really reflect the challenges that we're facing as managers and deliverers of care. Again, great blogs and articles. We are living in a different world. And I think Jennifer would agree with me when I say that the fantastic thing about technology is if we embed it in our culture, it can be a very, very informative tool that we can use and spread with our teams. It doesn't have to be high technology and it doesn't have to scare people. So think about sharing also some of the blogs and articles that we have to some of your team members. The interesting thing that's been coming up recently, and I've been hearing a lot about, and something that I think has been needed for some time, is the Deputy Managers Network. We do have a problem, not just in recruitment and retention for people who are working on the front line, but there is a sustainability that we're going to have a problem with. And what is the succession plan of your organisations? We should be looking to our skills of our deputy managers, how we can enhance their skills and move them to the next stage of their management development. So do take a look at the network managers. We'll be putting some bits out again onto the WhatsApp and what have you. And I know Dudley's been updating some of the WhatsApp connections. So if you're not on WhatsApp already, please get in touch with the organisation. They will put you on that group. It is a fantastic platform for sharing quick information or supporting one another as you go through your normal day-to-day work. The Registered Managers Renewal. I have just, on one of my dog walks, listened to Compassionate Leadership by Michael West. It is amazing and very, very worthwhile you reading it, and it will be coming free, I believe, with your membership from April onwards. We've got some lovely recruitment and retention development areas coming along with the development of digital learning. I don't know whether many of you have had the chance to get involved in the digital side and the digitalisation, but I would say DHCP and NHS Mail, again, if you want to talk about that directly, I'm more than happy to speak to individuals in regards to that. But the digital learning modules that are coming down the line, and I believe, Jennifer, you'll maybe covering some of these bits as well, I don't know, but they are worth you picking up as E-levels. Digitalisation will be the future, and we want all our teams to feel that that's an included journey for them. We've got those great management modules. You've covered those, Jennifer. I know that you're doing some bits and pieces on that, but do have a look at some of the e-learning. Those leadership areas are vital that you record them and explain why they're important to your business as you move forward, because CQC sees this as something that's highly valuable. Great opportunities to look at these modules, whether you feel competent or not. Reflect, remind, and go back again. Always good to keep that training up and there and record it on your CPDs. Good and outstanding modules. Again, we've got some really good modules that have been coming down. Centre for Excellence has been delivering, Outstanding Care has been delivering some really good pieces for us. And I think we're all looking for good and outstanding. And I know that that's what the local authorities are also looking at, as to ensure that we are the services we say we are, that culture is embedded in every step of what we do. And again, along with that is a lovely toolkit. I'm not going to dwell on that, but do follow the link to follow out where that toolkit is. And I think certainly having looked through it just briefly, I thought it had some really lovely little tips and movements that could help any service, whether you're getting outstanding already, to reflect upon and see how you keep that outstanding and show refreshing things. I would say about outstanding, it's interesting. You're not necessarily going to get it again just because you've done the same things year after year. What they're looking for is something unusual. And one of the key things I was told, and I'm sure Peter would agree with this, that if you are involved in research or if you're involved in delivering some sort of benefit, not just to your services, but to services beyond your door, that is really recognised by CQC. They like to think that you are influencing not just your clients, but also the longer term situation that we're all facing. I spoke briefly about digital. digital is a big part of the future, and I'm more than happy to talk to any of you about how you can look at digitalization as being part of your workforce plan as you move forward. So please feel free to communicate with any of us in regards to this. And Peter, you've got all my details. If anybody contacts you, do pass them on for me. I don't know how many of you are doing international recruitment. I would hope that it's a tool that some of you have looked into, but it is a very complex area. It does come down to ethical sides of things. And again, we have some amazing resources looking at how you show good practice. Domiciliary care has been a very, very big open place for international recruitment, and it can be very difficult when your contracts are changing and you've brought people over to this country to develop their working environments. It's a big area and it's going to get bigger. I think it'll be interesting to see how we move forward with new governments. So it's a good time to get your practice and policies in line with that sorted. CQC again are looking at this, and I would also say that you can be investigated at any time, or it's one of the few groups that can come and turn up on your doorstep and they can come and say, right, show us how you're doing your international recruitment. So I think that the government is going to be taking a very strong arm to ensure that we're doing this well. And we should be the industry that's doing it well, because if we look at person-centered planning, we should be doing that for our workforce as much as we do for the people we support. Little bit of workforce intelligence now. I hope, and if I asked you to put all your hands up, I know all your hands would throw themselves up into the air and say you have logged on for ASC and workforce development funding. If you're not aware of what it is, and you're not signed up to claim money back from the training you're doing, you might as well go to the bathroom, open the lid and put some money down the toilet, because we've got an opportunity for you here that you should not miss. Training is expensive. It can really be challenging to get that money back, but with the workforce development funds, we can do this. We can give you some money back for some key training. And what you're also going to be doing if you when you log on, I'm not even going to say if, I want you all to log on to this, you're also going to be making a difference to the future. I mentioned earlier, we know we're going through political changes, but one of the things that our government does is look to the information and the data that Skills for Care produces to look at how they're going to move forward in the future. And the information you give us about how your teams are developing, what sort of training they're doing, who you're employing, etc., initially may feel a bit onerous, but it's been recently revamped to be a much easier process. So it's a really fast and simple process. I am told that you should equate it to going on to something like Amazon, that it is that easy to be able to do. I haven't gone through it myself because I'm waiting for a log on, but knowing what it was like when it was when we had the NMDS system, it could be very complicated, but this system is supposed to be very easy. We will always take feedback if you want us to make it easier, and I'll take that back up to the IT teams. But it is vital if we want to ensure the government thinks about funding and how they look at our industry, which is effectively the biggest industry in the country now. Fill in the ASC and Workforce Development Fund, claim the money back, get that data there. If you put that information onto the database, you've also just done your training matrix, because it holds it all for you and it reminds you when training is needed. So please think very carefully about following the link below on this particular sheet. Do remember slide 21, perfect slide to log on and get your workforce development systems going. And we will be also looking at how that can be tracked through Oliver McGowan. So hopefully, Peter, these unruly deliverers of training will be addressed. And if you're getting the right training, we should be able to support you in claiming back any of the tier 2 training as we move forward. So a couple of upcoming webinars that might be useful to help you if you're not familiar with the workforce data set systems. Please do register for the webinar. And if you've got any queries, I would say, again, just come back to me. And although I'm new in my post, what I've found is the great workforce culture within our local team means that there is always somebody available for me to get that information. So I think that's a lovely thing. If I haven't got the information, I know I've got a huge national team behind me to help you out on any queries. There are other benefits, and do have a little look at some of the other benefits on the training reductions and some of the things that you can buy. So I think that is probably a very, very quick rundown of some of the bits that I'm doing. Does anybody have any queries or questions for me? Silence is golden.
you want to just put your email address and phone number in the chat?
I will do that immediately now as we talk, most definitely. Certainly, thank you very much, John. Lovely to see you too. Please do contact me for anything that you want. And if you don't take this information from here, do please contact Peter and he will pass you on to me.
Okay, any questions for Jenny or John or for Ali? Okay, just a couple of points. We're not having a meeting in August because everyone's on holiday, of course. But we are having a meeting in September, which is a face-to-face meeting on the 27th at Croydon in the Braithwaite Hall. It's a longer meeting than normal. There will be lunch. CQC will be there and also Fulcrum and a couple of others. And we'll have to do that by ticket because we have limited numbers, but we'll get the information out about that one. And for those of you in Northwest London, we'll be doing a similar event in November, again with CQC, and that will be hosted by Hammersmith. And there will be that will be a longer, even longer session, and there will be quite a lot there. There will be a focus on dementia there as well. We are about. Dudley and I are around if you need us. We can put you in touch with Workforce Development Fund. We can put you in touch with social works and other trainers.